Ozi v'zimrat Yah v'yehi lishua. Ozi v'zimrat Yah v'yehi lishua. Sing that with me. Ozi v'zimrat Yah v'yehi lishua. 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 Ozi v'zimrat Yah v'yehi lishua.
In this Purim plot unfolding on the people of Ukraine, with President Zelensky, you may have heard his impassioned plea before Congress, he was likened in the foreword to Mordecai, who cautions his niece, the queen, if you keep silent, relief may come from another place, but you and your family will surely perish. Now, knowing who Haman is in this scenario, I see the president of Ukraine much more as an Esther, assimilated Jew who made it thanks to his talent, yet who keeps his Jewish identity mostly hidden. But when push comes to shove, he not alone rises to the occasion, standing up to the hateful, arrogant aggressor, but uplifts an entire nation along with him. As he said to our legislative leaders, and really to all of us, strong doesn't mean big. Strong is brave, ready to fight for life. Inspired by a man who's risen to the full height of his 5'5.5" stature and way more. A Jew who sees the day because it took hold of him, we aspire to do all we can to support and sustain his people, our people. As this Shabbat, we affirm that bravery which really beckons us all.
Our service begins on page 120 in the books under your seat. Mishkan Tefillah with the kindling of the Sabbath lights. I'm going to invite Skylar and bring your mom up to join us. Yes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you. And we stand together now as we raise a glass in Kiddush, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav b'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'arim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Take a seat, and we turn to page 130 for Kabbalat Shabbat. Lechu neranena, yai lai 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 lai, la Adonai, yai lai 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 lai, Naria, yai lai 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 lai, litzor yishenu, yai lai 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 lai. Let us sing out to God, the maker of all, sure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea hear our song. Tonight we rejoice. So now let us listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu neranena, yai lai 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 lai, la Adonai, yai lai 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 lai, Nari. Page 136, 135 from Ramamu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lechad kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lechad kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lechad kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lechad kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Lehad Kodsho. As we turn to page 138 for Lechanodi, remembering that on the last verse we're going to rise and face the open doors and welcome in the Sabbath bride. Yai lai lai rai 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 rai. Yai rai 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 yai rai 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 rai. Yai rai 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 rai. Yai rai 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 yai rai 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 rai. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Yishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad V'shem u'tiferet v'liti. Join me. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech uri uri uri, shidaberi, kevod Adonai halayich nikra. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uv'tzola toch emunei am segula. Boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela.
So you know that this is the most important moment. I have to cut short because what does the Baruch Hu call us to do? A sacred activity, which is schmoozing. Schmoozing is the most. That means, and this is pretty great, being punim to punim. Many sometimes without mass, sometimes with mass. That's okay, but seeing each other's eyes, realizing we're here together to hold each other up, to celebrate each other, to sustain each other, to know that we're all connected. That's the gift of this call to prayer. We rise for the Baruch Hu.
Page 146. Bye. Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shekevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shekevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Page?
Yeah.
154. Ve'ahavta
Et Adonai
Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha b'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha b'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'ot ayadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha uv'chatam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Emet. What is the hope, the light that our prayer proclaims, shining even through the darkness? In the words of Emma Lazarus, inscribed on Lady Liberty, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. The light shines bright when we help pave that path to freedom's shore. We rise. No, we won't rise, but we sing Mi Chamocha.
With Sophia Bass.
158
Joining me.
with Sophia Bass.
Mi Chamocha Vayili Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar Kodesh, Mi Chamocha Vayili Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar Kodesh. Nora Tehilot, O Sefer, Nora Tehilot, O Sefer.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Eve Rudin. I'm the Director of Education, Youth, and Families, and I'd like to invite up my grade 5 feathered friends to come on up here. And we have a new member of the community who hasn't joined the Keshe community, but Lulu, if you'd like to come up, you can come up. It's no pressure. They just joined the temple. This is what happens. You get to come up on the bima. It's very exciting. So, our grade 5 year is dedicated to the overall question of what is my part in the larger Jewish picture. So first of all, I'd like to take a moment to introduce, she's very shy, Marcy Fraud, who's one of our grade 5 educators. She's very proud of them. You can come up here too if you'd like, but she's not going to. But in looking to our parts in the larger Jewish picture, we go beyond our Jewish community here at Larchmont Temple, and this year we have been exploring Jewish history, Israel, Jews around the world, and more. Recently, we also explored our greater spiritual world through God Talk, and we did our God Talk and our big questions based on a number of Torah stories and some images of God that we face in our prayers. One such prayer that we looked at was the Avot V'Imahot, which is coming right up, just so you all know, where we connect to our greater Jewish history through naming and connecting with our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. So when discussing the notion of God a few weeks ago at Tefillah, I asked the group a question. The prayer says, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, which means the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, and so forth and so forth. It does not say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. It says God of this person, God of that person. So one of our learners astutely asked, wait a minute, how can it be the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Sarah and the God of Rebecca if God is one? So what we talked about is that this young woman is one person, but she's a daughter, she's a sister, she's a friend, she's a soccer player, she likes to sing. She's all those things, but she still experiences her oneness as a person. So we concluded that God is different things to different people, but can still be one. And so we asked a group of our 5th graders to finish the sentence, to me, God is. So some of us, not all of us are comfortable reading in front, but some of us are going to share what they and their compatriots, how they answered the question. So let's have Sophia go first.
To me, God is an all-powerful being that created everything. I think he can take whatever from he wants. He can do whatever he wants. I think God is everything, the sun, the moon, and the stars.
To me, God is the one who created us. God helped us in so many ways. God had given me the gift of life. God had given me shelter, food, and water. To me, God is everything. To me, God is everything. Not a person, people, not a thing, everything.
To me, God is someone who looks out for everyone. And some people might say that, why did God create so many bad things? But there isn't good without bad. God created an incredible world. God is important.
Lulu, do you want to say read one? You can, okay. I'll finish up a few. To me, God is important. To me, God's voice is deep because he has many important rules to set. He probably listens to many hopes and dreams and prayers. Honestly, God probably effortlessly finds answers to questions, but helps people achieve the answers with work. I don't know what God thinks, but God holds power. To me, God is peace, helpful, important. He created almost the world. He might have almost lost a lot of weight on him. To me, God is not a simple answer. In my opinion, God is a creator of the universe. He is not a thing. God creates the emotions and natural look of different animals and all surroundings. For example, one of the miracles in life, like breastfeeding, requires sophisticated thoughts by God. God makes beautiful things from all around us. None of them wanted to read this one. So I took it. Our raw emotion and differences are one of the most unique things. And to me, God is special. God created my life and all the people around me. God created the world. God is so special, and I hope I will always remember that. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much. Inspired by our fifth graders, we're reminded of the Midrash that the rabbis teach when the people of Israel stood at Mount Sinai. God was a mirror that never changed, but everybody who looked into it saw a different face. So just take a moment. You can close your eyes. You don't have to, but you can see your own face looking in a mirror, and God's looking back. The question, of course, is, what do you see? Take a moment.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. Everyone, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל This is the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to put the TVs on, and Rabbi Serkman is in the other room right now. You'll see him on the TV. And that's all I've got to say.
it is really astounding that we are graced tonight with really somebody at the forefront and the front line. Though he's worked wonders in creating JCC Krakow as a centerpiece of Jewish community and culture, a hub of pluralistic programming, making it the address since its founding in 2008 for purposeful community connections among Jews across the spectrum, and I would say non-Jews as well. And though he spearheads Ride for the Living, a uniquely powerful Holocaust education commemoration program highlighted by the 60-mile bike tour from Auschwitz to the JCC, all of us can go on it if you'd like, or do the Global Challenge, which we'll be helping to sponsor. The work of JCC Krakow, Poland's largest local Jewish organization. You can't hear me up here. Hold on a second. You can't hear me. Wait, you can't hear me? You can. Can you hear me now? No, they can hear me. Of course you can hear me. So you'll hear all this, but I know I'm going to continue. The work of JCC Krakow is nothing short of inspirational. Thanks to Jonathan Ornstein, its executive director, JCC in the past just few weeks has pivoted on a dime, offering a multitude of services to help Ukrainian refugees, kids and families, elders, anyone in need, daily serving hundreds, in a way thousands. They're affirming human dignity and rekindling sparks of hope. We could not be more grateful that JCC Krakow's executive director is here with us to share. Though in his time zone, it is already tomorrow morning, he's here tonight for us. We are thrilled. Jonathan Ornstein, please. All yours. I'm going to go off video, but I'll have questions at the end.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you. You have a community that's become very special to me and to my family. I've known Rabbi Sorkman for a while, and we've had the pleasure of cooperating last year and a few things, Ride for the Living. And my nephew had his bar mitzvah not too long ago. And I know many people over the years that have been members there and whose lives have been touched in such a positive way by the amazing community that you've built. So it's a real honor for me to speak to you tonight, or for me this morning. You know, it could be worse because we haven't changed the clocks yet. So we're only 5 hours ahead of you. Usually this would be 6 hours. So it's not too bad. But really, it's wonderful to be able to spend a little time with you, Shabbat, and to tell you a little bit about what's going on here, what we're doing, and what the situation looks like from here in Krakow. So Krakow is, Poland is, I'm sure you know, everybody I think has learned a lot more about Ukrainian and Central and Eastern European geography over the last 3 weeks. Poland is a large country neighboring Ukraine to the west, and one of the main points where Ukrainians are coming when they're leaving Ukraine. So 3 weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks in one day, I think it was Thursday, the 24th of February, we here woke up in shock. Although the Russian troops were surrounding Ukraine, we didn't really think, and the Ukrainians themselves, and I've been meeting with many all over this past 3 weeks, didn't really think that there was going to be an attack. It was a surprise. As much as you can be surprised when Vladimir Putin is surrounding a country with troops, still it was seen as a bluff to gain concessions from the West, to gain concessions about Ukraine and NATO and sort of the internal Russian-Ukrainian issues that they have going on there. So they attacked on the 24th and came into work and straight away understood that there was going to be a huge amount of Ukrainians coming into Poland and they would need help, and that we would do all we could do to help them. The backdrop to this is that since 2014, when it started to have real issues between Russia and Ukraine in the recent history, we've had a large number of Ukrainians have come to Poland. So in Poland, a country of about 38 million, we have 1.5 million Ukrainians here before the war living here. So you have a lot of Ukrainians around. In our JCC, in our small community, we have about 20% of our students in our Hillel are Ukrainian. So it's not as if they're foreign to our culture here or not part of our society. They're a very, very big part of our society before. And I tell you this just because if you understand that you had 1.5 million Ukrainians living here before the war, when there was not a perfect situation, and certainly in the south of Ukraine and Crimea and in the east, problems, but you didn't have wholesale war and bombardment as you have right now, that you had this large Ukrainian population. So when we are dealing with these issues that we're dealing with now, we are also thinking not only about the short term and what we're doing, which I'll tell you about, but also the very real possibility that many, many of these Ukrainians, Jews and non-Jews, will stay in Poland for the long term. If they like Poland when there's no war, then you can imagine how Poland looks now. We in Krakow are, I think, really the closest big city to the Ukrainian border. We're about 150 miles from the closest border crossing. You can get there in under 3 hours, as I've done a few times that I've been there. So we knew right away that we were going to receive a lot of refugees. The first day, we didn't understand what that meant. We're not a humanitarian aid organization. I sent somebody straight away to go to IKEA and buy up a ton of mattresses because I just thought we'd be overrun and people would be sleeping in the center, which thankfully hasn't been the case yet. We don't have people sleeping in the building, but we have completely turned our building into a center for Ukrainian refugees, which means, and I'll go a little bit through what we're doing. We have a collection point here for supplies. That means people from all over the world are sending things to us. People are bringing stuff in, local Poles, medicine, food, diapers, sanitary supplies, clothing, baby clothing, strollers, anything you would imagine that people might need, people are bringing to us, and we are sorting through it. And then we have, at this point, on a normal day, 200-300 Ukrainians a day come in and take whatever they need. Again, we're serving Jews and non-Jews. It doesn't matter to us who comes in the building. We have Ukrainian speakers that we've hired to help deal with these people. Ukrainian and Polish languages are close, but if you speak Polish, you can't necessarily speak Ukrainian, and vice versa. If you speak Russian and Ukrainian, you can understand each other. But Polish, they're both Slavic, but it's not so easy. So we have all these people coming in our center. We have Ukrainian speakers that that are either volunteering here or that we've hired to translate, to help us. And we see what these people need and provide them with whatever they need. If it's just diapers or food, if they have a place to stay, then that's the one thing. If they don't have a place to stay, if they need a place to stay, then we help them. We've sourced hotel rooms all over the city. We've rented apartments, and we're currently housing. It changes every day. People are coming and going a little bit, but around figure 200 Ukrainian refugees that we're providing housing for. Some for a day or two, some for 3 weeks so far. And that's for us, I think, one of the main challenges that we're dealing is there's a shortage of housing, and of course there's a cost involved in housing so many people. But people come in, Poles want to help. The country has done a remarkable job. It wasn't obvious that would be the case. Ukraine and Poland have a difficult history. They don't always get along so well with each other. So Poland has just really reached out. I mean, the whole world has, but Poland, really on the front lines, has been amazing to see how everybody has been involved, taking people into their homes, doing what they can. We have a community member who has a house, not a huge house. What in a suburban America sense would be a small house. And she has 20 refugees living in her house. She's a single mother who's a doctor who works full time, and she has 20 refugees living in her house. So there's a tremendous amount of sacrifice and goodwill from the Polish people to help their Ukrainian neighbors. A couple walked in to our building sort of toward the early days of the war, the first week, and she was Ukrainian, and I think he was Turkish. And they came in, and we oh, how are you? What, tell us your story. And the young couple, they started to speak. It took them, it must have been the 4th or 5th day of the war. They started from the beginning. They were 70 hours on a bus. The bus would just stop anywhere. People would go to the bathroom on the side of the road. They really didn't have anything. Maybe they had some water, no real supplies with them. People just had whatever's on their back. 70 hours to get to the border. They were on the border for another day or two. It's a difficult situation on the border, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we were so eager to help them. What can we do? What do you need? And they said, no, we want to be volunteers. We're here to help other Ukrainians. So, not only are the Poles trying to help, but Ukrainians sometimes who've gone through an ordeal that most of us, I hope, will never have to go through. They themselves are incredibly helpful. Really eager to help. So the human stories are unbelievable. We've set up a daycare as well. We have some Ukrainian children in our preschool that we have in our building. But besides that, we've set up a daycare and safe space for mothers. So from children up to 8 years old, we have teachers in there that are taking care of them during the day for the children, and then separate space right across the way for the mothers who have English lessons, Polish lessons. We're helping them with getting them, helping them get jobs, psychological training, psychological counseling if they need it, because these people have gone through so much, especially as the war is dragged on and on. So the people that are the earliest refugees were the ones who were in a better situation. They left early because they had a place to go and didn't need as much help. But we're starting to see that as we're in week 2, week 3, and we're entering the 4th week of this terrible war. We're really seeing people that they themselves have been through. Their cities were bombed and have gone through terrible situation to get to Krakow. One of the little girls, it was a really nice story in our preschool. Her name was Daniela. And she came in one day, and we had a little rocking horse that somebody had brought in. And there were, among all the clothing and food and diapers and all of this, her mother was taking clothing and taking supplies, and she was sitting the whole time on the rocking horse. And we took a little photo of her. And it turns out that she was wanted to go to our preschool, and we discussed it with the mother. And the next day she started in the preschool, and it turns out that the next day was her 5th birthday. So we only found out about it, I think, the afternoon right before that she was coming the next day, and it was her birthday. And the teachers went and so I got a cake, and they got presents for her. And they showed me the photos after, which the girl's so happy. Looked like not a care in the world. All the other little children who just met her that day were hugging her and standing around. And you would have thought it was a girl that would have been their friend for years and years. You had no idea that the day before, this little girl had just crossed the border with her mother, left her father behind, and was just taking supplies so she would have something to be able to live and to wear to school the next day on her birthday. So really some amazing stories that are going on. We've set up an information point with the local partners. It's the largest NGO information point in Krakow. In that, we're providing people all with social services there, legal counseling. There are 100 people living in that place, and in kind of dormitory and mattresses on the top floor. It's a theater that wasn't in use. We're feeding those people, helping with the local restaurant. We're providing them with all the food that they need. So that's in Krakow, being very busy with what we're doing, both in the building, by ourselves, with local partners. We're operating on the border. We have a partner that has an amazing operation on the Ukrainian side of the border, where people have been waiting for days and days sometimes to pass through the border. It's been very cold. The first time I went to the border, it was snowing, and these people were just standing there. So we helped to purchase tents for these people, for the Ukrainians waiting, heated tents. There are medical professionals there now that we're helping support to bring them there, to get them supplies, to make sure they have hot food and on the border. We're also sending materials into Ukraine. There are this organization that we work with has very good access on the border. They can go in and bring supplies into Ukraine, and we help them with gas and with sourcing the vehicles and with purchasing the supplies. And they go in with supplies, and they never come out empty. They bring people out of Ukraine every time. The other day they did a convoy. They sent 29 buses in, and they brought 1,000 people out of Ukraine that we were able to help them with. So it's an amazing situation for us that we're usually a provider of services. We're a JCC. We raise money. People help us financially, and then we have a preschool, or we have Shabbat dinners like we had tonight, like we have every week, and all these programming. But we are now find ourselves as a convener, find ourselves as a provider of not only a provider of services, but as finding local organizations here on the ground, including Ukrainian organizations, both inside Poland, on the border, and inside Ukraine, and then helping support them to be able to amplify what we're able to do. As a small center, we can't always do too much on our own, but because we do have friends like the amazing Larchmont Temple community that you've been so generous with us, and Jews really around the world, then we've been able to help a lot of people. We got a call from an organization that we work with that there was a bus of 45 children with autism that they had evacuated from a special school in Ukraine, and they were coming to the border, and there was an organization in Vienna that was waiting to host them, but they had no way to get from the border to Vienna, which is about it's I think maybe 800 miles or something, 600 miles, 800 miles, very far. So we contracted a bus company straight away. I think they had to send 2 buses. There had to be extra driver because of the regulations. Anyway, on a very long drive, and we helped get those 45 children with autism to Vienna, where they're being cared for. So really doing things as we can, anywhere we can, Jews and non-Jews. And our normal role is to rebuild Jewish life in Krakow, which really means that we are serving a community that, through no fault of its own, because of the Holocaust and because of communism, was almost completely decimated. And people that were not only suffered through the Holocaust, and then somehow our community that survived, but then were disconnected from their Jewish identities. So we have a little bit of experience dealing with people who have suffered because of a very difficult history. And while on a tactical level, what we're doing on the ground, what we're doing is very, very different these past 3 weeks. We've hired, I think, 9 people. We have translators, and we hired people to help us with housing and to keep an eye on all the people that we're housing and to check on them. We've expanded, and we're doing something very different than we were. But at the end of the day, helping people, innocent people, because they've been affected by history, was something that we were doing then, and it's a different population that we're helping, and the circumstances are different, and the calendar is different. But I think that it's very much in our DNA to be able to help them and to try to do all we can. And like, I hope all Jewish organizations, guided by the idea of a world that is in better times is broken, and now is exceedingly broken, and we have an overwhelming, I would say, not a responsibility, but the way that I see it, Rabbi, I think we have a privilege. It's a real privilege to be able to help these people. And I thank you and your community for helping us do that.
Jonathan, please, are you kidding me? This is, if it's not, I think it's a privilege. And I think our teacher, Professor Elie Wiesel, said, the goal of being Jewish isn't to make you a good Jew, it's to make you a mensch, a humane human being. And so you're taking care of all folks. Anybody who comes is just an inspiration for us. I know that we've helped with the Ukrainian crisis appeal that that you extended, and we extended to our congregation, and we'll continue to do that. And folks, if you have not yet contributed, right? But we see other places. We see, they're buying diapers, they're putting, whatever it might be, and trying to ship it over or bringing it over. Is there anything that we can do beyond? And I know that funds really do, go a long way, because they, the 9 staff members you hired, or those 2 buses that you had to take the 45, kids with autism, to that school, that cost money, and that's not money that's in your budget this year, quite clearly. Is there anything else that if the answer is not right this moment, that's okay.
No, there is something that I was made aware of today. People are bringing and sending a lot of supplies. We're actually having to go and rent a warehouse and we're such a tiny little JCC. It's funny if you think about our size that we'll have to go rent a space larger than our building really to be able to process. I don't really have much experience with dealing with forklifts and pallets and all of this, but I'm from Queens. What do I know about this? But there is something, but I think it's difficult. Just that I understand that in Ukraine and now in Poland, it's very difficult to buy wheelchairs. Now, wheelchair, it's also very difficult to say, oh, send a wheelchair over. But just in terms of, there's always a need for Tylenol, children's medicine, diapers, baby wipes, cold medicine, there's thermal underwear, sweatpants, pajamas, there shampoo, there's toiletries and stuff, but people are sending that in large numbers. And it's hard for me to understand in large amounts. It's hard for me to understand based on what people are sending, where the real need will be. But it's difficult to ship things. Often the things that are needed are things that are difficult to ship. But I appreciate it so much that people want to not only help and send money, but also to tangibly give something and to give part of themselves. I mean, it could be even cards. People can send cards for Passover is coming up. Send make maybe the kids can make cards and we can put them up and they can see that. So anything really, so many things are necessary. Really, everything at the same time is.
We have an idea exactly along those lines that we're going to try to do. It's going to be multi-generational. I'm not going to tell you, but it does involve teddy bears and T-shirts. I cannot reveal it to you, but I think you'll like it. I will just say this: the fact that your light is radiating out and what you're doing, and I'm not giving you full credit, even though I do think you're an example to a lot of us. But what JCC Krakow is doing in partnering with the NGOs and it is radiating out, it just gives us hope. So I just want to say, there are no words to thank you. We'll continue to do whatever we can. If there's something that develops that you think we could help with, just give me an email. I'll respond immediately. And B, get some sleep.
No rest for the weary. Thank you, Rabbi. And I just want to say, for all the suffering that we're seeing and all these people coming across the border, the takeaway really for all of us is the human response across the world. And I think that I leave this experience, although we're still in the middle of it, I see it as a life-affirming experience. The positive response of your community, of Poland, of all people around the world is so much stronger, and it really outshines the darkness coming from Russia.
Jonathan, you are a mensch and then some. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, u'mevorach. Shavua tov to you.
Shabbat tov. Be well.
So you just heard Jonathan. He gave me a perfect segue because this is the moment of our prayer for healing. And it's really about light even in the face of darkness. The light radiates out. We know there are many people who are broken, certainly in our own community, our own families, our circles of friends. But there are so many, whether they're under siege still in the Ukraine or those who've escaped the violence, they feel the brokenness. Their spirits are broken, God forbid their bodies. If you're thinking of somebody now, somebody in your life who is in need of healing, we'd love for you to whisper their name now aloud if you're in the sanctuary or at home. And of course, we add to those names the hopes for all of those that we pray for in Ukraine who made it over the border to Poland, those who've been broken by this hellish war. Our hope is for healing for them all. The gift of being who we are, a Jewish people who've been through so much, is we know in the midst of craziness, of darkness, of confronting the struggle, we still celebrate. That's what it means to be the Jewish people. And so I'm going to call on dear friends who are regulars. In fact, are you guys sitting in your seats? Oh my God, this is the first, and it's so exciting. The Liptons, Susan and Stephen, come on up here. Celebrating 40 years together. I'm going to open the ark. You guys can stay seated. Don't worry about it. You guys going to stand right here. You're going to stand right here. You got to hold this. You got to hold this. No. I'm not going to hold your hands too. Stay right there. Mi sheberach avotenu v'Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imotenu. Sarav karachav le'em, by the one who blessed our mothers and fathers before us, under the canopy of life commitment, bring blessing to this bride and this groom, Susan and Stephen, as they celebrate a lifetime of love, 40 years of married life together. As they journeyed life's path, a story of sweetness, their hearts ever intertwined, so may they continue to celebrate life as they have lived it, always hand in hand. As they have been part of this place forever, raising their own wonderful kids here, modeling through their membership, their connection, menschlichkeit, by living gracious Jewish lives, so may they know they have strengthened the spirit of this congregational family. And as their marriage together has brought us such blessing, not to mention many a Diet Pepsi shared, enriching the lives of all they have touched, so may the blessings they brought continue to overflow for generations of their family fast unfolding. So with gesund and goodness God-given, with life-affirming joy filling their beautiful hearts, may we come together in celebration of their wonderful partnership for years upon decades yet to come, and let us all say,
Amen. Simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov.
on page 586, Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lateit gedula liyotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated for a moment. This Shabbat marks 100 years since a young woman named Judith Kaplan was called to the Torah as the very first bat mitzvah. Last name Kaplan may be familiar. She was the eldest of 4 daughters, actually, of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, one of the founders of the Reconstructionist movement. And this Shabbat, Jews around the world are celebrating the centennial of young women being called to the Torah, as Skylar will tomorrow morning. As we reach this moment of memory in our service, we honor those women, those men, those people in all of our lives upon whose shoulders we stand, perhaps whose names we bear, whose legacies we've inherited and continue to honor. So I invite you to rise and turn to page 598 as we make ready for Kaddish, honoring so many loved ones in our temple community, and in particular, mourning the passing of Shloshim for Frankie Bloom, who will be laid to her rest on Monday, mother of Fred and Cindy, wife of Myron, sister of Mal, and aunt of Rabbi Serkman. Gershon Gary Gilson, dear friend of Louise Elton. Paul Stampelman, husband of Laura, father of Jim and Leslie, grandfather of Sean and Sophie, brother of Jed and Stephen, brother-in-law of Monique. Dean Chip Myers, husband of Elizabeth, brother of Vicky Stein, Jackie Myers-Smith, and Lizette Myers-Orr. May Wool, mother of Barry, mother-in-law of Emily, grandmother of Rebecca and Alyssa. Chaya Sarah Malka Goldberg, a dear loved one of Amy Lieberman. Stanley Ross, father of Laurelyn, Stacy, Kendall, and Randy. Donald Ingram, father of Brian, Aaron, and Mara, father-in-law of Lynn, grandfather of Sophie and Emma. Joe William Zerbib, husband of Diane, father of Thierry, Irene, Michael, and Nick, father-in-law of Robin, Brian, Michelle, and Lynn. Nick Balinson, father of Suzanne, John, Larry, father-in-law of Rob, grandfather of Jane, Tommy, Sarah, Hannah, Jacob, and Carly. And to their names, we link those for whom a yard site is observed this week in our community, remembering with reverence Ellen Druck-Mertz, I. Nathan Platt, Stephen Weiss, Eugene Myers, June Block, Regina Cholet, Rose A. Solomon, Adeline Baum, Frida Wellner, Elsie Easton, our Larchmont Temple past president, Lawrence J. Sobel, Stephen Janowitz, Arlene Fine, Robert Tauber, Leslie Handler, Isidore Silver, Edith Solomon, Murray Whitner, Tom Silverberg, Norma Haber, David Zehelander, Mary Leibowitz, Stephen Joseph Waldman, Eugene Knorr, Marvin Sains, Solon Finkelstein, Henry Sobel, David Halpert, Murray Robinson, Robert Cassidy, David Grossman, Minnie Sterlich, Bella Marglis, Nadine Felton, Gertrude Gross, and Ferdinand Weston. And if you are here or there saying Kaddish for someone who either died in recent days, at this season in years past, or just whose name you carry with you each and every day, I invite you to add that name as well. So we join together in loving memory, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shamei Rabbah, be'alma zivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon uvyomachon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman karim v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. La'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. Amen. You may be seated. I want to invite up Michael Nathan, our congregational president, to share some greetings and announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. By now, since I'm almost finishing my second year, I hope most of you know who I am. I'm Michael Nathan. I'm president of the temple. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us both in person and online, and I hope more and more people, as we hopefully are past the worst of the pandemic, join us in person in the sanctuary. It's just wonderful to see everybody here. I'd like to congratulate Skylar Kaufman and her family on becoming a bat mitzvah and joining that long tradition on the centennial of the first bat mitzvah. I'd like to thank the band for bringing us such inspiration And the fifth graders, led by Rabbi Rudin, it was just wonderful to hear their inspiring stories of their view of God. And I know in just 5 short years, they will hopefully be joining Rabbi Serkman to explore it in greater depth. And of course, as Rabbi Serkman already did, and I hope Jonathan Ornstein is getting some sleep right now, I wanted to thank him for joining us tonight. As Rabbi Serkman indicated, we had sent an email to the congregation earlier in the week, and I hope everybody's taken a look at that and can help support this incredible effort in Europe. Just a few quick announcements. Hevra Torah tomorrow at 9 o'clock, both in person and online. The musical Minyan at 10:30, also live and on Zoom. And on Sunday, we have a Brotherhood breakfast at 10 o'clock. Mimi Roca, who is the DA for the County of Westchester, will be giving a talk, should be quite interesting. And then we also, in the tent that you saw probably as you came in, we have the Purim Spiel for Kesher, back in person after a couple of years.
Yay!
And
I'm
thank
so
you.
excited.
What? Do you want to give a shout out for him?
Guys, you're all invited. I don't know if I'm allowed to invite people, but okay, yes, come through. There might be a horse, but I'm not supposed to say anything.
And thank you to the clergy and for leading us in such a beautiful service tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Joining our voices together, we rise, singing just one song, a song with one word, peace, salam, shalom, in hopes that, God willing, there will be peace soon. Peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam. You're just going to keep singing that over. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Keep it going. Peace, salam, shalom. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. We believe in peace. Shalom. We will work for peace. 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 Shalom. In Parkland, Florida. In Gaza. In Washington, D.C. In Pittsburgh, PA. Shalom. Jerusalem, Ramallah, Tunisia, in the Ukraine, shalom, peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam, shalom, peace, salam, shalom. Shabbat shalom.